Shanghai, May 1989. The Chinese leaders had promised their grateful people a more liberal future. Mad with excitement, the locals did their wake-up exercises and concentrated on the eternal questions which have haunted Chinese philosophers throughout the ages. Who is that Western interloper? What does he want from us? How did he get in? I got in on the daily jumbo shuttle service from Hong Kong, only an hour away, but in another world. Hong Kong was part of the West. Shanghai was in China. In Hong Kong, there were 5 million people jammed into one city. In Shanghai, there were that many people at the airport, waiting for relatives visiting from the outside world to bring them TV sets. But the government was very definite that prosperity was on the way. China would soon be producing scads of consumer goods just like the West. Every family in the country would have a cordless telephone on which to order a takeaway Chinese meal. Unlimited wealth would be created, and 1,000 million people would be rolling in it. For the moment, foreign currency was still the best kind of money to have. For a pitifully small amount of it, you could catch a cab to town, or wherever the cab stopped when the engine fell out. My own cab ran quite well if you didn't mind a tendency to catch fire in second gear. The steering wheel had only a spiritual connection with the car. It didn't matter because there were hardly any other cars to hit. But there were almost as many bicycles as people, and enough Western-style hotels were being built for everyone in the West to come here at once. I made my base in the Shanghai Hilton, where a standard of personal service was immediately on view, which Mao Zedong would have condemned as slavery. From high up in the Hilton, I could do what Westerners in Shanghai spent 100 years doing. I could look down on the Chinese. Up where I was, there was splendid isolation. There was very little of that down there. With the eye of a trained sociologist, I could tell at a glance that most of the people in the area had only limited acquaintance with 24-hour room service. If they really were heading for the future, they were starting from a long way in the past. Shanghai is the biggest seaport in China, but it's not on the sea. It's on a river, the Huangpu, and along the bank of the Huangpu looms the biggest deal in Shanghai. Known to the Shanghainese as the Waitan, but to the world by its German name, the Bund, it dates from the time when the Western powers had the best land in the city divided up into concessions, from which they drew enormous profits while the Chinese ate scraps. Shanghai became the most famous Western city in the East. When I was growing up, every Hollywood film about China featured a big scene set on the Bund, with Sydney Greenstreet and other Western actors almost as large being towed along in rickshaws by very small extras of Oriental origin wearing comical conical hats. It was a fantasy. But the really amazing thing about the fantasy was that the reality it was based on was still there, looking just like a film set. What the war hadn't destroyed, the revolution had preserved, wrapped in dust, a permanent reminder of colonialism at its most shameless. The Chinese had counted for nothing in their own city, a message which the occupying Japanese army backed up with bayonets. After the war, the revolution ensured that Shanghai would belong to the Chinese people. Lots of Chinese people. 12 million people, all voting communist. They all set out on a 40-year-long march to transform a society whose wealth was only for the few into a society whose poverty was shared by all. Some of them seemed to be taking the marching thing a bit literally. I was only in town to make a documentary and hadn't expected anything so spectacular as a demonstration. Later I heard that they were students who thought that the new freedom to get rich should logically entail a few other freedoms as well, such as the freedom to stage a procession without being thrown in jail. It looked as if the party chairman, Deng Xiaoping, agreed with them, since nobody had turned up to throw them in jail yet. Personal liberty, hologram credit cards, Arnold Schwarzenegger videos, it was all just a step away. At Shanghai's #1 department store, called Shanghai's #1 department store, the front window was full of desirable objects. Inside the shop, it turned out they were not available. They would be soon. It was a quiet part of the day, so there were only about 500,000 people present. They were doing a lot more looking than buying. Instead of things that people wanted at a price they could afford, there were a few things they wanted at prices they couldn't afford, and a lot of things they didn't want at prices they couldn't afford either. But a country with a centrally planned economy can provide ordinary people with access to goods which in the West are available only to an elite. There was a plentiful supply of navigational equipment for submarines. Now any ordinary Chinese citizen who owned an ocean-going submarine wouldn't have to worry about running it aground just for want of a simple electronic echo sounder. After nightfall, it was almost dark, but not quite. There was just enough neon to hint at the vivid economic future. Young Chinese foreign exchange experts offered to take the few pounds sterling in my wallet and convert it into a steamer trunk full of the local dough. I admired their energy, but declined the deal, because the evidence suggested that there wouldn't be much to buy with the cash except navigational equipment for my submarine. Next day, I woke with sore feet and did the smart thing. I called the front desk and asked if transport might be arranged. The results were instantaneous. No need to rush?
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, welcome.
In my youth, I had been a famously good bike rider, but gave it up when I was run down and injured by an old woman with a walking frame. In Shanghai, the chief danger was of colliding with other bicycles. There are 3 million bicycles in Shanghai and no rules for how they should be ridden. You just feel your way forward. In the West, I am of average size, plus a few pounds, but in Shanghai, if I fell on someone, I would flatten him into a diplomatic incident. I steered by contact, trusting the instinctive sense of direction for which we Australians are famous. Eventually, I found myself in a part of Shanghai that looked like Surrey. It was one of the leafy inner suburbs that the Westerners used to build for themselves so as to feel better about being in the East. For once, there was space between people. In a city with that many people, it should have been impossible. Where was everybody? My philosophical ruminations were interrupted by a burst tire. The Chinese pump their bike tires drum tight because they are light people. Heavy people make Chinese tires go bang. Telling this to the Chinese bicycle repairman was not easy. I was studying the Chinese language, but so far I had learnt only one word.
You fix it? Long time?
Now I learned where all the people were. They were living at least 3 to a room in those big old spacious-looking stockbroker-built houses. Daisy Kwok's house had 35 families living in it. Once it had belonged just to her and her family, who owned the Shanghai equivalent of Harrods. Now, what was it like when you lived in it?
All this was grass.
Yeah.
We had a squash court, and then these were the 2 tennis courts, and behind this, further down, was the gardens.
How far back did it go?
All the way to the street. But actually, in the beginning, this was the front door.
Yes. Well, so that wall wasn't there, of course.
In the wall, no.
Yeah.
And the entrance, I said, where's the entrance? They blocked it and built little rooms for people to live in.
And the servants?
The women's servant lived up on the third
there,
floor, the top.
up the top.
And the men went, yes. And there's another place over there. Someone's living there.
How many servants?
24.
24.
That's all. And
Daisy had led a privileged existence. A war, a revolution, and a cultural revolution later, she still thinks she's privileged. She's alive. Let's go back to when the family was wealthy. What did you do?
Oh, well, in the beginning, of course, it's parties. I mean, you hear cocktails, dinners, dancing, and of course the popular places. There was a majestic hotel. It was someone's house, a big house, something like this. And every Sunday they had a tea dance. Then you go to the tea dance, you look around, and all the elite would be there. And that was a Sunday tea dance. Then later on they had the Canadrome. Canadrome was a greyhound racing place. So you could go there, and sometimes at afternoon sessions, and we used to go in the evening. And we'd have dinner and go and place our bets and come back and dance and lose some more money or collect our winnings, which we very seldom did.
How did you get around?
In cars, of course. Oh, I mean, it's very bad to say, of course. Now that I've passed through a cultural revolution, I realize my life in the old days was very bad. I belonged to a privileged class and didn't think of the workers.
Tell me what happened to you in the Cultural Revolution.
I worked. The first time they sent me out to labor was when they arrested my husband. They said, we can change your work. I said, okay, anything you say, the government knows best. I was put on a farm. It was called the Foreign Trade Farm.
What did you do on the farm? Did you grow rice?
Yes, that's, let me see, where did I grow rice? That was in the second farm. When I went to Chongming Island, all the capitalists in foreign trade were put in Chongming Island to be re-educated through manual labor. And I did everything. So when it was the time to grow rice, we start growing rice. When it's time to harvest rice, we harvest rice. And it isn't just that's why I never waste rice now, after I've seen what I've been through.
So you got re-educated, and then they found out you weren't a capitalist after all.
That was after I was retired. So I said, then what are you going to do about it? Because you've ransacked my house. I said, very sorry. And they gave me a framed certificate to say that I was honorably retired.
Daisy had seen everything happen in Shanghai. So judging by the smile on her face, whatever happened next was going to be all right. When Daisy was young and Shanghai was glamorous, the bright young white Russian princesses with foot-long jade cigarette holders arrived on the Bund every night in Bentleys whose engines would be kept warm with furs until the young ladies were ready to go home again. As pampered and brittle as prize poodles, they stepped from the running board into the foyer of the Cathay Hotel, where Noel Coward was staying upstairs writing private lives, and there was frantic dancing until dawn. Nowadays it's called the Peace Hotel, and you're less likely to run into Noel Coward, partly because he is dead, but mainly because the glamour has faded. But there were some American sailors from a destroyer which had been sent on a goodwill mission to welcome China's newfound passion for free enterprise, aptly symbolized by the daringly decadent Western-style music that set the pulses racing. They were only half as old as the Rolling Stones, so they were still in with a chance. On the following day, my bike had still not been fixed, so I headed for my next appointment by alternative means of transport. With liberalization proceeding apace and democracy only just around the corner, Shanghai was on the move, if not by bike, then by bus. It has been calculated that every Shanghai citizen must beat 3 other Shanghai citizens to any seat on a bus. Regular bus passengers develop such a turn of speed that they would reach their destination sooner if they didn't catch the bus at all. Quite a big percentage of the buses don't even get to where they're going. They get to where they fall apart. But being on the bus was kind of fun, even when it wasn't moving.
Go on, it's okay. It's okay. No problem. 没关系，没关系。Yeah, sure. 静坐。
Popping rivets and belching lead, the bus lurched off towards its inevitable appointment with a broken crankshaft. Through the window, I could see all the wonderful new construction projects which were going to be finished any time now. It was like riding a wreck through a junkyard, but I got to rub shoulders with a lot of very nice Shanghainese. Prosperity hadn't spoiled them, perhaps because it wasn't yet the kind of prosperity which we in the West would find it easy to distinguish from near penury. During my ride, the woman I had given my seat to had taught me a whole new sentence in Chinese. You are standing on my foot. Like the Chinese Communist Party's view of history, the bus was on a predetermined route. Next stop, private property, followed by share ownership, takeover bids, organized fraud, and all the other wonders that we in the West take for granted. Soon Shanghai would have it all. Guided by a retired teacher called George Wang, I took a look at one of the free enterprise markets that had already made a lot of difference to the amount of food available.
What are all these pigeons?
Well, pigeons. They are not pigeons.
What are they?
These are pigeons.
These are pigeons. What are those?
Yeah.
Chickens.
The chicken. It's what do you call that? It's,
They gotta eat them?
oh yes.
They gotta eat everything.
Everything. No, what? Not feather.
No feathers.
No,
No feathers. They eat everything else. Huh?
everything else, including yeah.
Oh, hen how?
Yeah, including feet.
They eat the feet.
Of course, as well.
Is that a delicacy?
Well, to the Chinese people, yes, it is.
Here at last were the new plutocrats of Shanghai. They mightn't look it, but these people were doing well. And the food mightn't look it, but it was a big advance on what people used to get, or rather not get.
Eels. Shanghai people love eels. But they're alive. Very big ones.
Hen how?
Granted that these things were actually in demand, there was certainly a supply.
That's great.
You
Yeah.
have to kill them first.
Oh, right. Yeah, glad to hear that. Sayano.
I tried out some of my painfully acquired Chinese and was duly rewarded. I was rewarded with incomprehension. Chinese produce is free range. It looks weird because it's real. In the West, we get our food wrapped up, the way nature intended.
This is sea cucumber. Very expensive dish. Soup dish.
That's a delicacy.
A
Huh?
delicacy, yes.
What are those ones there?
That's the pork tendon.
Tendons.
Yeah.
So that's tendons and sea slugs. Sea
A
cucumber.
sea cucumber
Uh-huh.
and a squid. You know.
Great.
Yeah. That's jellyfish.
Jellyfish.
Yeah. No, that's turtle.
Turtles. How do you cook them?
Well, usually turtle you steam,
Yeah.
and if you steam it, put some sherry, put some sugar, and ginger. It's a tonic.
Uh-huh.
Suddenly I was longing for a good old-fashioned freezer full of emulsifiers, stabilizers, and abstract non-vegetable fat. Every merchant in the market was making more money in a year than George Wang had made in a lifetime. Whether the party was doing enough to straighten these anomalies out was apparently one of the things on the minds of the parading students. As May turned to June, every day there were more of them. To streets that would have been crowded anyway, they added a new crowd. Another crowd gathered to watch, making 3 crowds. But the 4th crowd, the one composed of the police and the army, surprisingly went on declining to show up. Maybe they'd heard there just wasn't room. In Shanghai, if you want room to swing a cat, you have to plan ahead. The People's Park is where the people come to enjoy their day off work. The day off is rotated. Otherwise, they would all have been here at once, and the place would have been 6 times as crowded as this. Here was a chance to be alone. Some people gathered into groups so they could enjoy it more. The snazzy dresser who definitely hadn't bought his outfit in Shanghai's #1 department store would be doing this on satellite breakfast television if he had been born in the West. He would have about the same sized audience, but with more opportunities for merchandising. Families who slept on top of each other came here for the luxury of only having to sit beside each other. Extended families of the future came here to be alone. But they weren't alone for long. In Shanghai, children were everywhere. Chinese families are supposed to have only one child each. An only child myself, I joined the other only children at the semi-open-air circus. The rain threatened, but there were some very good routines. One of them featured either one very talented large lion or two reasonably talented midgets in a lion suit. The rains came. Most of the people went home, but I stuck around for the last number. It was Shanghai's most gifted cocktail waitress. After only one trip to the refrigerator, she could serve a pina colada to every member of the People's Special Committee Against Western-Style Alcohol Abuse. Catching up with capitalism wouldn't be easy, but the Chinese were a clever bunch, and in Shanghai they were even cleverer than anywhere else. Every imported Western fad up to and including communism had got its start in Shanghai. So Shanghai was where the new entrepreneurs would come from. Madame Dai's baby washing salon was an up-and-coming example of private initiative. It exploited a plentiful natural resource, babies. For parents short of a bath at home, Madame Dai bathed the baby in return for a set fee, with an extra charge for earwax removal. What impressed me about Madame Dai was her knack for establishing a relationship with the baby. If the baby cried, Madame Dai had only to touch it and it would cry louder. No wonder those other parents couldn't wait to entrust Madame Dai with their own gorgeous offspring. In the West, the children's bath is full of such distractions as plastic ducks, which lessen the valuable opportunity to bond with a tender adult human being. The Chinese word for baby is xiaowawa. The Western visitor, of course, is free to get as sentimental about cute xiaowawas as he likes. The Western visitor is free to go. The Western visitor is free.
Thank you.
Strong evidence that Chinese industrial performance was indeed leaping ahead was provided by the news that my bicycle was almost fixed. I demonstrated to the kids what would happen to me if the tires were overinflated. They seemed to understand, but the bicycle repairman still didn't. Both tires were as hard as bullets. If one of them popped while I was in front of a truck, I would be a steamed turtle. Luckily, some representatives of the beloved Chinese People's Army were ready to mount a guard of honor over my remains. The tire popped again, but I had something to watch while the bike was being repaired. The student processions were getting bigger by the hour. It was evident that practically anybody counted as a student. Everyone who could push a pencil was in the procession. Soon the workers joined in too. The TV channels and newspapers were all for it. Since nothing happens in a totalitarian country unless the government wants it to, it was easy to believe that the whole business must be party top dog Deng Xiaoping's personal inspiration. For once, the old brigade was doing the smart thing and welcoming the inevitable instead of trying to stamp it out. Young art historian Ni Yibin had taught himself perfect English and also managed to organize a clean shirt, the second feat being even more amazing than the first, because under socialism, China's age-old ability to do laundry has somehow been lost. Yet I reluctantly decided communism must have something, if it could grow a flower like him in soil like this.
Okay, that's my lane. And,
This is your...
living here for the last 32 years.
What's... rats?
Yes. It says to kill rats, that's everybody's responsibility.
That's everybody.
Yeah, 人人
Where's the rat?
老鼠
That's a rat.
Yes,
Ah.
that's a rat.
And this is home, huh?
Yes, this is my leg. And,
Why did your family move here?
because we used to have a house in the old city,
Yeah.
but when Japanese came,
Yeah.
we had to evacuate because it's very dangerous to stay in the Chinatown. It's built during 1930s, and now that's a very typical place.
You have to do all the washing outside.
Yeah, of course they have to hang things outside.
Where are the lavatories? Inside?
Yeah, you get a chamber pot.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, then you pour the chamber pot into that kind of thing, which has a underground kind of.
It actually goes somewhere, huh?
No. Every day there's a car came.
The cart?
trucker came to Drew.
The dunny man.
Yes.
We call it in Australia the dunny man.
To Drew.
The cart comes in and it takes
Yeah,
it all down.
and that's my lane.
That's your lane, huh?
Yes.
Right,
So
having-
it's still lots of bicycles and
Uh-huh. And there's lunch going on.
yes,
There's lunch.
everybody is cooking.
Children all dressed up. Did they know you were coming?
No, because I never cleaned. It's so.
And your room's the one at the top?
Yes, that's my parents and inside my room. They're making their lunch, obviously.
Uh-huh. Well,
And,
he rolls it out there, but it gets
Yes,
cooked in here,
but the wife is cooking over the pan.
Well, they look like tortillas. Huh? They're omelets.
Yes, with some egg and
Yeah.
flour.
They look good. Really good.
Yeah, that's shared. Obviously, you can share it by 7 people because one burner just belongs to one.
Oh, there's a
family.
burner for each family?
Yes,
Right,
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And also one tap for each family, so we can meter the names.
Oh, I see.
water.
So each family has its own tap.
Yeah.
And there's a meter on each tap.
Yes.
So if you use someone else's tap, that's cheating, huh?
Yes.
What would
But
happen?
they can turn it off.
Oh, right.
They can turn it off.
Oh, so only you can use your tap.
Yes.
Right.
But we haven't come to the stage that you lock every
No,
tap.
you don't have to lock the taps.
No.
That's interesting, because in England or Australia or America, you would have to lock your tap. In fact, you need a gun.
That's,
Yeah.
Now this is my little room, and this part is my.
Ni Bin's room was a treasure chamber in miniature, a collage of the heritage of his homeland. The pictures and ceramics and books he had collected against enormous odds were all lovingly pieced and placed together in a room he shared with his parents.
Yeah, next.
Right here?
Yes, next.
Right through
Just
this
over.
wall?
Yeah,
Just over-
yeah, just over the wall.
There's not an awful lot of privacy, if you'll
No.
permit me to say. A Western young man raised in these conditions would most likely be out breaking things. Ni Bin was bringing them home and preserving them.
Because my father's books, some of them are out of date, so.
Under the Cultural Revolution, the Red Guards would have made him smash his own crockery as a preliminary to smashing him. Smashing capitalism was a big theme in those days.
For me.
When capitalism was so thoroughly smashed that nobody except the half-dozen 90-year-old top leaders could get their shirts laundered in less than a month, there was nothing else to do except try to put capitalism back together again. Already, there were people wearing clothes more brightly coloured than the old orthodox blue and grey. But the real problem about getting rich in Shanghai is that you're still stuck with Shanghai. Though the outdoor barbers and cobblers are now free to barb and cobble a bit on their own account, the footpaths they work on cover pipes and conduits that you can't modernize without moving 1 million people out. Shanghai would disintegrate if there weren't so many people holding it together. An underground railway is currently being dug, but with some concern that the city might fall into the hole. One of the tributaries of the Huangpu is Suzhou Creek. At one time, the invading Japanese were on one side of the bridge and everyone else was on the other. History has marched on, but left the original sewage system still in place. The contents of all the cesspits in the district are pumped directly into Suzhou Creek. So those people in the romantic-looking houseboats were washing their salad in untreated sewage. That guy was trying to clean himself with liquid dirt. Once again, looking down on them was more comfortable than being there with them, but it was still unsettling. Confucius wrote a poem about it. At some time in our lives, we are all up Suzhou Creek without a paddle. My bike was ready again in time to get me to a very important appointment. For all those millions of Shanghai males with not much foreign currency, but an irrepressible sense of style. The place to enjoy a touch of luxury is at the barber's. Personal head care is a major event in China, where Mao set the standard by having his massive skull well tended. I asked for the full treatment and got it. This guy knew where to put his fingers so it would hurt most. After half an hour of having my face prodded, I felt like a man who had spent half an hour having his face prodded. Concussed, I did my famous impersonation of Mao in his mausoleum. Finally, the barber polished my skull with raspberry sauce, and I nodded approval at a dome so slick that a cockroach couldn't have crossed it without crampons. This was the look I had always wanted, the Noel Coward look. The sleek look that blends into Shanghai's sophisticated nightlife. The longer I had been in Shanghai, the more it had been bothering me that I'd been living in Western-style luxury. But the regime was saying that a bit of Western-style luxury was all right after all. And what the hell, I had just had a scalp massage. So I slipped into my seersucker lightweight tropical jacket and headed out into the city which had inspired Marlene Dietrich to tickle Clive Brooks' well-chiseled nose with a feather boa as she descended by easy stages from the Shanghai Express. Before the revolution, Shanghai's red light district covered half the city. Now the red light district is a sort of pale pastel and only a block long. But the fitfully crackling neon signs at least hold out the prospect of a drink in suitably exotic circumstances. Unfortunately, when I followed a couple of American sailors into a bar, it turned out to be no bigger than a telephone booth. There were already 3 people crammed into it, passing a plastic cocktail olive from mouth to mouth. I left the sailors wedged behind the waitress and tried another bar further down the street. This one was a better bet. It had 2 booths and one of them was empty. And the lighting was really atmospheric, like a wimpy bar during an air raid.
Sprite?
Sprite, yes, okay.
The booth that was full of 2 young people who seemed to be getting on famously. Suddenly, I felt lonely.
Cola.
Yes, please.
When I took a swig of my Chinese Sprite, I didn't feel lonely anymore. I felt as if I had just been injected with neat sugar. The drinks of Shanghai are sweet. The girls of Shanghai are sweet too. But only one of them was here, and she was occupied. Those 2 were getting on more famously all the time. If they got on any more famously than this, someone would have to turn out the lights. The lights did go out. Somebody must have ordered 2 milkshakes at once. The neon outside was using up all the power. Next day, I woke with a disappointingly clear head and an unslaked thirst for entertainment.
How much?
Keen to sample the available diversions, I joined a river cruise which advertised itself in the English language. The fare was about the same as the price of a box of matches, but no doubt there would be a surcharge when we got underway and the promised non-stop entertainment was unleashed. The river was a brown I hoped was mud, yet the old skyscrapers of the Bund still had magic in their Art Deco outlines. It was echoed in the boat's rather elegant furnishings. You could imagine Myrna Loy or Anna May Wong sitting there. You had to imagine hard because there was nobody sitting there at all. For 3.5 hours, nothing happened. Just when I was starting to wonder whether I and the captain's mother were the only people on the boat apart from the crew, a band appeared out of nowhere and started playing the last Western song to reach the Chinese hit parade. Then an inscrutable character showed up whose identity puzzled me until I realized that he was a colonel in Chinese intelligence who had been shadowing me in a series of brilliant disguises ever since I got to Shanghai. They weren't taking any chances. They had put their best man on my tail. The main reason why the boat was empty was that the streets were full. By now it looked as if everyone in China was demonstrating for liberty. Was there anyone left over to demonstrate against? Surely nothing could stop this. At the Shanghai Conservatory of Music, you got some idea of what China would be like when it was once again joined to the world. It might do our stuff better than we could. There was a child prodigy in every cubicle. Some of the instruments dated from before the Revolution, the French Revolution. They were barely usable, yet the music coming out of them was sublime, and most of it was Western, composed by capitalists like Vivaldi, Mozart, and Verdi. While 4 students sang the quartet from the last act of Rigoletto, I sat with the school's director, Madame Zhou, who had been right through the Cultural Revolution and emerged from it, like Deng Xiaoping, as a new kind of communist who saw that excellence would have to be cherished, not crushed. These young singers you've been developing in the last 10 years, all these incredible musicians, is there a future for them in Shanghai?
Yes, but they don't have so many opportunities to hear good music and to sing in opera performances. And so if they have a chance, they go. And so first, because our conservatory was established in 1927. And so in 87, it was the 16th anniversary of our conservatory. And we wanted to, give concerts with all the prize winners we have trained here. And we had only one violinist left, all out abroad. You see, so this is quite a problem. We train them and then they are gone.
What happened to you in the Cultural Revolution?
Well, in the beginning, I was put aside, as many others, doing nothing. And then worked in the garden, in the field, in the kitchen, canteen, and doing everything except teaching and singing.
What happened in the conservatory? Was it?
Stopped.
They stopped it?
Stopped for 10 years. Yeah, from 66 till 76, almost. Yeah.
So a whole generation of musicians just
all stopped.
Lost.
But one learned a lot of things.
What did you learn?
Well, all this I've never done before, and during the Cultural Revolution, I learned all this, and also politically, what I know. I think I know also better now how to think, how to judge things. One becomes wiser.
The whole of China had become wiser. Shanghai was practically bursting with wisdom. My tires weren't bursting anymore because the repairman had learned not to pump them up so hard. This time it was the cotter pin in one of the pedals that went. Bicycle repair experts quickly accumulated around my stricken machine. As a last reminder of the now repudiated state-controlled collectivized economy, a grand total of 36 people were collaborating on the total failure to repair one bicycle. Finally, I left them to it. If I wanted to be part of an audience, there were more spectacular shows to look at. Shanghai is a great center for Chinese opera. Discouraged by Madame Mao because it was too much fun, Chinese opera was still the best way of getting away from China without actually leaving the country. For one thing, it looked luxurious, in sharp contrast to everything else in the People's Republic, except the life its leaders were leading behind closed doors. Shanghai was meant to be China's shining city, but the truth was that it was grim, dull, and dirty. The opera looked merry, bright, and clean. Nevertheless, all the acrobatics made you long for the singing, until you heard the singing. Actually, I soon got to like it, and the story was quite easy to follow. It was the story of a helpless family protesting about having been ruthlessly resettled too close to a factory making kitchen utensils. They complained bitterly about pots and pans being tested. Their complaints were ignored until they combined with workers from the all-Shanghai curtain rail factory and began agitating for the democratic right to have their own poll tax. On behalf of the people, the new entrepreneurs demanded the privatization of the school system, the health service, and the Suzhou Creek combined sewage outlet and laundry facility. The wise old party leader pretended to be reluctant, but finally, with a twinkle in his eye, he graciously gave in, having outsmarted the hardliners on the Central Committee and brought about the democratic reforms he had always wanted in the first place. The experience of age had guided the enthusiasm of youth towards a glittering future. Yes, old Deng was a realist. Mr. Li, the party spokesman in Shanghai, was a realist too. He was a famous smoothie, so I put on my tie. These are delicate matters, but I think I should raise them. I've been in the city now for a week.
Yeah.
And it's so crowded that it seems to me it must be a breaking point. This may be just a Western perception, but I see so many people in one bus. I see so many people in one house. How can industry flourish in these conditions?
It is a Chinese perception as well. It's too crowded almost to a bursting point, as I see it. I think in the long run, the only way out is to develop what we call the eastern bank of the Huangpu River.
Build another Shanghai there.
Build another Shanghai, a new Shanghai there.
Why can't you fix this one?
This one, it's too congested and too sensitive. I mean, if you touch one house, you are involving many families.
A lot of the wealth is going to be generated by private industry. Have you personally got political objections to the flourishing of private enterprise and all that it brings with it?
I don't think I do. Actually, we are encouraging wholly owned foreign industries in Shanghai, and they would be certainly private industries, out and out.
Is this a development of communism, do you think? Is this?
Well, you shouldn't view communism in a very rigid as a very rigid dogma.
I don't. I'm just interested that you don't.
I don't. I think, as we put it, you may say that it's our jargon. That is, we are building socialism with Chinese characteristics.
How are they motivated? Are they getting adequate rewards? I mean, I'm talking about the driver gets paid more than a teacher. So how does a teacher feel?
Of course, the teacher have complaints, and also the officials. You got perhaps the I mean, some of the very poor civil servants in the world here in Shanghai. But this is, I think, some phenomena in transition. God allow some people to get rich, or rich in our sense, in our limited sense, first. You can't go back to this old egalitarian situation.
Is that one of the reasons why the students have been on the streets in the last 2
I think
weeks?
you may attribute as one of the reasons because of the inequality in distribution.
With men like Mr. Lee in charge, everything was going to be all right. Communism wasn't over, but it had stopped being all-powerful. Discussion would be allowed. So that must have meant that the student gatherings were practically state-sponsored. Nobody believed that the People's Army would march against its own children. In that amazing first week of June, the day came when the whole of Shanghai was on holiday. The Bund was a fun fair. They were all breathing freedom like oxygen. They wanted the world to know their story. They thought that I and my camera crew, who were only there by accident, could help them make history. God help us, for a mad moment we thought so too. Gorbachev was in Peking, but some of the students thought I was him. Others thought I was Winston Churchill. I thought I was Father Christmas, helping to bring the benighted East the great blessing of Western goodwill. Absolutely convinced that old Deng would do the right thing, we flew out of China on the very night he did the opposite. In Shanghai, there was no need for the armoured personnel carriers to go rolling in over the young people's faces. In Shanghai, the party didn't really care how many young people threatened to starve themselves to death, because there were always plenty more. In Shanghai, hardly a shot got fired. There was no need. Everyone realized it was hopeless and went home, including us. So now we're here, and they're all there, and that's it.